Welcome to MTN Outdoors.
Welcome everybody to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm once again your guide, Andy Curtis, and the big game archery season is finally here in Montana, meaning today's episode will target specifically at that. We'll take a look at some first aid that you need to know before you head up in the mountains, and we'll explain the finer points of the block management system. And just to give you a little bit of a heads up and maybe a tiny bit of an advantage this year, we'll also take a look at the hunting forecast. And I'm not just talking about the weather. MTN's Chet Lehman starts things off for us.
Forecasting the upcoming hunting season for the Montana Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks requires them not only to look back at the success of last season, but to look at the impact of winter on the wildlife. An interesting note, last year's hard winter was good news, bad news, depending on what species you hunt. For elk, for example, last year's hard winter meant more successful hunting for elk in this area.
Some elk populations remain above objective. We actually saw elk populations come from above population objective to within population objective in one hunting district, hunting district 360. And then populations remain below objective in hunting district 310, which is the area kind of south of Big Sky.
Same tough winter, same area, different species. Wildlife reduced the numbers of pronghorn antelope, and that meant the young ones.
We saw what looks like about a 30% reduction in the pronghorn herd in the Madison Valley because of winter conditions, mostly predation that occurred during heavy snowfall.
Jacobson says as far as mule deer and whitetail deer go, numbers look good going into the new season. Now, no one would question the impact of weather. Annual migration happens because of it. So as hunters are gearing up for the 2023 season, Jacobson says look to the skies and be prepared.
For hunters, you know, the message I would give is wildlife populations are doing fairly well, especially elk and deer, and there are plentiful opportunities to harvest these animals. You know, that harvest that opportunity may change either, you know, in good or bad ways depending on weather. You know, keep that in mind as you go into hunting season, that you know, weather plays a huge role.
As a reminder, archery season begins this Saturday. The general hunting season begins Saturday, October 21st. South of Big Sky, Chet Lehman, MTN News.
Well, archery hunting season is just around the corner here in Montana, meaning a lot more of us will be hitting the mountains with a lot more razor-sharp objects than normal. Meaning right now is probably a pretty good time to bone up on some first aid.
And wrap it over that wound.
So I reached out to Sergeant Jay Nelson with the Montana Highway Patrol, who as a trooper is well trained with first aid and stopping blood loss from accident victims.
That's going to keep that windlass rod from coming loose.
And he told me that above all, there are a few items that you need to have in your pack. Because if you're bleeding, far from help, time is not on your side.
When you look at just basically even the tourniquet, where you would have an arterial bleed on an arm or a leg, which is common, you have about 3 to 5 minutes, probably closer to the 3-minute mark, before you could possibly bleed out. So having one of these devices is extremely lightweight on your person, in your vehicle, in your backpack, is essential.
Along with your tourniquet, Sergeant Nelson recommends QuickClot, an emergency blanket, duct tape, and a chest seal for any spot that you can't apply a tourniquet to.
Should you have something in your chest area, what we call between the clavicle and the navel, then you're going to have to apply an occlusive bandage, which is in these type of kits, which literally is a pad that sticks over that wound. Again, not really technical. You're wiping away any of that bleeding. You're placing this on the wound, and possibly could save your life to at least get you to a higher standard of care where you can receive more medical intervention.
Like anything, practice using these life-saving tools makes perfect. But if you can't find a class with a qualified instructor, it's okay to try the next best thing.
You can actually Google tactical Combat Casualty Care, TCCC. You've got videos you can watch, different outlets to training there.
For more information about first aid tips or this upcoming big game archery season, check out this story on our website.
Well, hunting season is about to take off, and there's no better time to think about who am I going to get to mount my trophy elk this year and process all that meat. Well, for 25 years, Timberland Taxidermy has been the place to go here in Great Falls.
I got involved in taxidermy a long time ago. This is my 25th year full-time. The interest came when I was in high school. I hunted quite a bit. I grew up on a ranch out in Belt, and I hunted a lot, and that piqued my interest in doing taxidermy. And wherever I went, I was looking at taxidermy displays. It just really got me interested, and I've just been obsessed with it ever since.
From start to finish, the team here can take care of all your taxidermy and meat processing needs.
Basically, taxidermy, when you break it down, it means two words. Taxi, which is moving, arranging, and dermy, which is skin. It's movement of the skin. Basically, what we do in our field here is we skin out an animal, and we take the cape off, which is just going to be used for a shoulder mount. That's skinned off, we get measurements, and then we need to get that cape taken care of. It gets turned into the tannery. They bring it back to us as leather, and then we mount it over a form or a mannequin, they call them. The only thing that we use from that animal is the skin and the horns. The eyes are artificial. The form is, of course, made out of foam. That's basically the process. We mount them over a form. There's dry time. Then we have airbrushing and putty work to do. And then out the door they go.
The attention to detail and the care Sean puts into his mounts is an art form. He takes pride in his work and continues to hone his craft, so that we can place his artwork on our walls, and I can always look back and remember that very special day. Here in Great Falls, I'm Paul Sanchez for MTN News.
We have a lot of public land that we can hunt here in Montana. We also have a lot of private land, but in some cases that's private land that we can hunt. It's called block management, and it's a partnership between landowners and Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to provide hunting access to the public. Participation is voluntary, and landowners are compensated for their involvement. But as a hunter, it's not exactly as easy as just showing up to an area marked with one of these signs. You have to do a little bit of homework before you head out hunting. And so I didn't make any mistakes this season. I had Jason Kuhl with FWP explain it to me.
Montana is very regional based, so each of our 7 regions has got over 900 block management areas. And so once you kind of hone in on where you're going to hunt, look up the block management opportunity, start with that statewide access guide. It'll give you the overview, and then each of the individual properties will have a separate map and rules. And all of those rules can be different. That's one thing that's unique about Montana, is that the rules may be different by which property you go on, because it is set up on a landowner-centric basis.
So it should be easy enough if you read the info at the entrance of the hunting areas first. For example, we're here at the Prickly Pear Simmental Ranch BMA, where walk-in hunting from designated roads is allowed. Again, each hunter first must sign in at the box before you head out. But this isn't the only type of block management area.
So we have what we call a Type 1 and a Type 2. A Type 1 is a hunter-administered permission, meaning you go to a box like this on the landscape. They're all over Montana. Those individual maps that I showed will show you where those sign-in boxes are at, and you give yourself permission. The other one we call is a Type 2, and those Type 2s are generally limiting hunter numbers, limiting to certain parties per week or certain parties per day, and those parties will then allow those reservations on those properties will allow hunters to go.
All right, everybody, and with that, we come to our MTN Outdoors trivia question of the week. And you might want to sit down for this one because it's going to stretch the limits of your knowledge of our Montana hunting regulations. So take a deep breath, because here we go. The state's 147,164 square miles are divided into how many administrative regions? Is it A, 10 FWP regions, B, 7 regions, or C, 8 regions? Really think about this one. And if you're having trouble answering this question, you might want to double check those regulations before you head back out in the woods. We'll have your answer when we come back.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm Andy Curtis. Thanks for sticking around with us. Now, before the break, I asked you this week's MTN Outdoors trivia question. And just in case you missed it, here it is one more time. The state's 147,164 square miles are divided into how many Fish, Wildlife, and Park administrative regions? Is it A, 10 regions, B, 7 regions, or C, 8 regions? All right, how well do you know the regs? If you guess 7 regions, then you know your Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks hunting regulations pretty well, because that's absolutely right. Each of those 7 regions are broken down into hunting districts. Those are numbered 1 through 7, with the hunting districts in the region corresponding to that number, right? So, for example, 1 starts with a number 1, 2 starts with a 2, and so on. And now you know your regs a little better and have absolutely no excuse if you get questioned by a warden this season. And you really don't have any excuse not to have some type of adventure here in Montana. MTN's Haley Monaco recently met up with this group of women who had the trip of a lifetime floating the Yellowstone River.
Audio diary day 3. This is audio diary day 4. It is day 5. We do think we are the first women team to do this and camp along the way and not just go in a hotel every night. Happy 26th day on the river. We just had our last supper.
Nearly 1 month and hundreds of miles later, 4 women living in different states can now say they came together to complete a journey very few have ever done.
Started in Gardner, Montana.
Floating 570 miles on the Yellowstone River.
We ended at the confluence there where the Yellowstone meets the Missouri.
It was a trip that took 2 years of planning, an idea first brought about by Celesta Hallam Barwick.
I originally wanted to float all the way to Louisiana until I ran the numbers and realized I was not taking a year off of work. So then I just decided to do the whole Yellowstone and invited my daughter.
MTN News had the opportunity to speak with 3 of the 4 women who were on the trip about the unique adventure they decided to take. All about the ups.
I think it was really healing to be in nature for that long, and we had such a good girl empowerment vibe on our boat.
And the downs.
Was there any moment that any of you were like, I can't do this anymore?
Not me. I was in it for the long haul. Other people may have struggled.
Mom, you had us. Okay, there's a video of a snake crawling under her tent, and like literally her and Sherry are like, I'm out, I'm done.
But they powered through every hardship, even a fear of snakes, and made it out on the other end. Sherry Smith-Hawley shared something special she learned about herself along the way. Just turning 50 and dealing with health problems, she feared she might not be able to complete the trip.
And learned that I'm not broken and that I can still keep going. So that was huge, exciting for me, like just more empowering that life's not over at 50 yet.
They all made memories that will last a lifetime and even have plans for more river adventures.
We'd like to hit every river in Montana now.
Well, we're going to try. There's a lot of them. We're going to try.
In Billings, Haley Monaco, MTN News.
And if you're the kind of person who prefers to have their adventures here on solid ground, especially if that ground happens to be sloped and snow-covered, then this next story is for you. MTN's Charlie Kleps is showing us some improvements that Red Lodge is making here in the off-season.
Now here's an area you're probably not familiar with this time of year, Red Lodge Mountain. But for its workers, they've been up all summer, helping put together the brand new chairlift. A massive project, but one they hope makes a huge impact on the mountain.
regardless if you've seen it or not, it's pretty darn cool.
There's been a lot of moving parts at Red Lodge Mountain this summer.
Well, it's not often we can pull something like this off. You know, we're a small to mid-size operation.
Mid-size operation or not, the mountain is in the middle of adding a high-speed chairlift to the base area. A nearly $3 million project and one that takes a lot of work.
We've had a crew of 12 working just on the steel, the concrete, this side of it. A lot of it 6-7 days, like since the snow melted.
Lift manager Larry Freeman has been a part of the construction process since the snow melted, but the planning has been going on for years.
This has been fantastic to finally get the steel in the air and be doing it, really showing the progress, you know. So last week it was still a bunch of steel laying in the parking lot, and now all of a sudden, you know, you're gonna look in and it's a recognizable ski lift.
The lift will be replacing the old Miami Beach lift, which was built in 1973. The new lift is faster and goes further up the mountain, creating a much more versatile option for visitors.
The old lift was probably at best 450 people per hour could get up the lift. This one will be 1,800 people per hour can get up the lift.
And I think that's really going to change how people use the ski area and really just the overall experience.
A big investment, but one the mountain hopes will be worth it, adding a new element on the slopes.
Time will tell. If nothing else, our longtime customers will enjoy a faster way out of the base area and access to more terrain easily.
In Red Lodge, Charlie Kleps, MTN News.
And if you're a real ski hound, I've got some good news for you, because Red Lodge isn't the only place making some changes here in the off season. As it turns out, Big Sky is making some big changes. MTN's Kristen Merkel has our story.
Big Sky Resort is extending their ski season this year, making it the longest one yet, and Big Sky locals couldn't be happier.
I like skiing a lot. That's part of the reason I ended up here, and at the end of the season I feel like I can never get enough.
Manuel Carballo has lived in Big Sky for 5 seasons and skied 95 days at the resort last year. He says an extended ski season for the resort is a game changer.
I know the locals will be stoked because everybody here really likes to ski, and so there's definitely going to be that sort of traffic, and I'm sure it'll be quieter than like the most, the busiest parts of the year.
Big Sky Resort will now open the day before Thanksgiving and close April 28th, making their season 169 days. Big Sky Resort's PR manager Stacy Masuda is excited for more opportunity to ski and says longer seasons like this will be the new normal.
Personally, I'm very excited because ski season is my favorite time of the year. I love skiing in the spring because it tends to be really sunny. April is my favorite month to ski, so I'm looking forward to skiing all the way till April 28th.
Masuda says shifting these opening and close dates will alleviate some of the shoulder seasons, bringing more business for hotels, restaurants, and shops.
By staying open until April 28th, we're really trying to enliven some of that traditional shoulder season where it gets a little bit slower here in Big Sky. And eventually we hope to stay open through the month of May for skiing.
For Big Sky local Carballo, he's hoping for a snowy winter to enjoy this longer season.
But I think as long as, the snow gods are good to us and we have enough snow to last us into April, like late April, that will be awesome.
In Big Sky, Kristen Merkel, MTN News.
We now return to MTN Outdoors.
Hey, welcome back everybody, and thanks for sticking around with us for this week's episode of MTN Outdoors. I'm your guide, Andy Curtis. And if you're looking to hit the trail this weekend and learn a little bit more about American history, MTN's Phil Van Pelt has just the place for you.
Here in the foothills of the Pryor Mountains and right in the heart of the Crow Reservation lies Chief Plentycoo State Park, a 40-minute drive south of Billings and right into history.
Chief Plentycoo was one of the last traditional chiefs of the Crow people.
If you've ever wanted to take a hike back in time to learn more about the Crow people and one of the tribe's most influential leaders, this is the place to visit.
He was known as a transitional chief, leading people from the Buffalo days into the reservation days.
The Life's Way Trail at Chief Plentycoo State Park takes visitors on a journey through the life of the last traditional chief of the Upsalaka people. First stop, the chief's homestead.
The funny thing is, Chief Plentycoo didn't live in this house until about the last 3 years of his life. He actually had his teepee right outside, and he preferred living in his teepee as most people did at the time.
Although the walkable loop is just 1.1 mile, the entirety of the park spans 196 acres.
The Crow were traditionally known as a smaller population tribe, and so through some of their visions, they found around this area in Montana to be, what they considered their homeland.
This sacred spring, also a popular stop along the trail, offers a place for prayer, and many leave something as a token of their visit. And for many Crow people, a visit to the park is a spiritual experience.
One of the Chief Plenty-Coups spirit helpers was the chickadee, a bird that the Crow believed would listen to all sides of the story before making a decision. And so that was one of Plenty-Coups spirit helpers throughout his life.
These grounds are also home to another interesting secret, 2 previously undiscovered species of apples.
So there are 2 varieties of apples out here, are Chief Plenty-Coup Duchess of Oldenburg and Chief Plenty-Coup Wealthies.
And no visit to the park is complete without this final stop on the hike. This is Chief Plenty-Coup's grave. He was buried here next to 2 of his wives. It's a hike that's more than just a path through nature. It's a cultural trip into the past, and a place sacred to not just the Crow people, but to all.
That's one of the Plenty-Coups things he wanted, was a place where people could come together and learn from each other.
In Pryor, Phil Van Pelt, MTN News.
Well, that should just about do it for me here this week at MTN Outdoors. Thanks again, everybody, for spending some time with me. And remember, please, as the archery season starts up, send those successful hunting photos my way to andy.curtis@ktvh.com. That's why the brag board was started here originally. And I'd really love to see some elk and deer photos in my email when I get back to the office on Monday. So please send them my way, and you could see them at the end of a future episode, just like these folks. It's time for this week's MTN Outdoors brag board. And today we're showcasing pictures from the Jocham family in Helena as they take a little family hike and have a little picnic in Refrigerator Canyon. From what I understand, they had a bit of an interesting ride there, getting a flat tire just a couple of feet from the trailhead. Looks like they made it all right. Thanks, Eric and family, and please keep those photos coming. This next video is of a few visitors we had at the station in Helena. It's always good to have some fans of the show stop by. All right, everybody, thanks again for spending some time with me, and until next week, I'll see you out there.